Welcome.
The Pathology Innovation Collaborative Community is a regulatory science initiative that aims to facilitate innovations in pathology, as well as advance safety and effectiveness evaluation. The PI Collaborative Community aims to harmonize approaches to speed delivery to patients through collaboration in the pre-competitive space. The PI-CC is open to all stakeholders, public or private, including but not limited to academia, industry, healthcare providers, patients, and advocacy groups. Meetings of this kind are an example of lawful activity under federal antitrust law, because the focus of the meeting is on government action or policy, including the industry's responses or positions taken with respect thereto. However, antitrust monitoring is needed for companies' own protection, since they are direct competitors meeting together. These meetings need to stay within protected subject matters and need to be monitored so that they do not stray off into inappropriate areas, such as pricing and price terms, sales and service territories for particular products, customers and customer territories, each company's individual decisions regarding selection of suppliers or customers, marketing plans and especially future marketing plans or new product offerings, other proprietary or competitively sensitive information. Today's meeting will follow the written agenda, and there will be no discussion of pricing or other prohibited topics. If the discussion veers into those topics, we will terminate the discussion. If you have any questions or concerns about the propriety of a discussion, please raise it immediately, and we will take a break to determine how best to proceed. The Medical Device Innovation Consortium acts as the formal convener, and we will follow their conflict of interest policy. For additional information, we defer to our Code of Conduct and our website, www.pathologyinnovationcc.org. We look forward to moving the field forward.
I know there are a few other people who will join, who dedicated some time and wanted to, discuss certain things. If you don't know where you are, Pathology Innovation Collaborative Community, this is the steering committee, August. And it's a pleasure of having you all. And of course, as always, we have a lot of stuff to go through. There's a lot of things moving. And I will go straight ahead, and hopefully we can have some of the other presenters join and chime in. So the first part is about 6 or so quick updates from the FDA. The first part, I know everyone in pretty much every lab is using this, is the so-called off-the-shelf software. And when you use that in medical devices, there are specific rules to follow, etc. And notably, the original guidance dates back to 1999, and it was a superseding document for the off-the-shelf software used in medical devices from the 2019, and then there's a new version that just came out a few days ago. It's too complicated to go through, but I just wanted to make a pointer, and I believe Ola has already pasted it in the chat. So this is probably the most prevalent piece of software part in any device, and there's specific rules, and that was updated recently, and we can probably discuss soon why. The second part, you may have seen some announcement where some folks portrayed it as you can use now alternative methods, for example, to animal experiments for certain regulatory components. And there was at the MPS World Summit in June, a fantastic talk given by one of the co-chairs of the FDA's Alternative Methods Working Group, Donna Mendrick. The slide deck is publicly available, and I wanted to share this because a lot of these additional or so-called alternative methods probably will soon also hit the pathology field and the community. The third part, the third update is CDRH's so-called Experiential Learning Program, which is also referred to as ELP. And there's a big training site, and it is about what product review looks like, how it's reviewed, how products are developed, how to incorporate the voice of the patient, etc. And as you can see, there is an FDA annual student scientific research day happening for many days, many years. And one of the program periods, as you can see on this announcement here, is still open, and this update just happened in early August. So please take a look. I don't know, Brandon, if you want to say anything about this, because I think you've been involved, at least in some of the students, correct? It's a great program. Yeah,
the basic
think,
idea it's a chance for industry to invite the FDA staff to visit the manufacturing site, or host them to talk to all that organization's experts about their product development cycles and processes, and new directions or old directions, to, it's always better for FDA staff that are part of reviews to know what they're getting into and know what they're receiving before they have to like render decisions. And so this is just, and this kind of hopefully is more experiencing like that whole industry from one manufacturer's standpoint.
Shannon, you also know the program, or?
Yes, Mayo has applied to participate in the program in the past, so it's a very valuable program.
Awesome. Thank you. I think the information is already in the chat. Next part is probably extremely important for this group, because some of the soon-to-be released guidances will be probably of excruciating importance for the field. Let's just hint at that. It's pretty much known that the FDA will soon release guidance on how to regulate LDTs. And there is also, that just came out in mid-August, a tips page for submitting comments on CDRH guidance documents, which is extremely helpful to really explain in detail how to actually comment and what that looks like, and how to be specific about it, how to provide the correct source and where you're actually commenting and why, etc. So this is, of course, an official part, which is, federal law. The comment period is important, and that's public feedback. So you can, of course, provide input as an individual, but PyCC could also provide input. And that is part and parcel of the, the guidance document process. And I thought that this page and the document related to how to provide feedback is extremely helpful. You may have seen that the MEDUFA, in this case, user fees for FY 2023, were released. So this is detailing in specific what 510K standard fee and small business fees are. And related to that is another page that's called MEDUFA 4 and Beyond, where several so-called video reports are outlining certain elements that are new. And you may have recognized here, the fourth video shown here is Michelle Tarver, who helped us create this pathology innovation collaborative community. And I thought that the videos were very informative and helpful to understand what the user fee amendments actually mean, and how that is applied. It's of course completely different from PDUFA for other reasons, but I just wanted to point out that the videos provide a very clear outline of the center's missions and some of the accomplishments. Moving straight along, the interface with all the list of cleared and approved companion diagnostics has recently been updated. That's 821. I'm sure many of you who work in this field have seen this, so you can search it. The screenshot doesn't capture this, but it provides whether it was a pre-market authorization or 510K or, and it's a fairly comprehensive list. And as you will see when you go on this, you can download the table. There have been a few papers actually using this database to illustrate how soon companion diagnostics were introduced and what impact they had in the market. And interestingly, as you can see here, this is also under the, one of the branches here is precision medicine, tests used in clinical care, as well as laboratory developed tests. So I presume that this same branch point in the CDRH page will soon have more information coming. There's also a new pilot program that was just released, I think a day or two after our last steering committee meeting, which is called the TAP program, which is a Total Product Lifecycle Advisory Program. And when you look at some of these enrollments, there's a lot of subpages, but one of the key elements for those who are interested is how to actually go through the whole device development and review process. So that's the early phase of a total product lifecycle management. And for some of the regulatory affairs people on the call, they're probably fairly familiar with what that looks like. But as far as I can tell, this is a sort of how to work on solutions together. And I would say that this is a supplement more for product developers, not so much in the pre-competitive space, but as a program, certainly very, very interesting. So, and then with that, I hand it over briefly to Brandon for a high throughput truthing update for August.
Thanks, Joe. I have provided several updates to the high throughput truthing project here, and so
You want
maybe
to
just share my screen then, Joe? Was that what you were thinking?
Yeah, we can do that.
Just for a little bit. One, I think, is where I want to be. And then don't quite click start. Hi, everybody. All right, so number one on my update here is that this is a brand new website for our project. We used to keep track of our project on an NCI collaborative hub, they called it, and but they're decommissioning that next year, and so we've taken the step to start moving to something by GitHub, and assuming that that's not going away. It seems like there's enough users that it won't go away. Maybe they might charge us, but please check it out. The link will be in the chat here. Yes, already there. And this is the front page of it. And the updates will appear as these little posts. And so that's where I'm in right now. A post for today, August 2023. I wanted to just let you know that it's coming, and we thought maybe we would even get the online link today, but we did a couple of years ago submit a proposal or an inquiry about collecting a data set that could be used and qualified as a medical device development tool. We did receive some feedback from the FDA reviewers, so my colleagues over in the other building. And this paper kind of outlines that whole experience. And the whole reason I'm doing this validation data set and medical device development tool project is to try and, outline what is needed for similar type of data sets and how to go through the process of the medical device development tool, which ultimately will be quite analogous to what you might see in a device for an algorithm that and the issues that come up when you describe your validation data set for that algorithm. So so I will post our link in our Zotero library to the paper when it's done. Stephen Hart was the lead author on this, and most of the team was co-authors. In the Zotero library, let's see, it looks something like we have our selected works, and the Zotero library then is a little bit more detailed, which is not just publications, but is all the presentations I have given in this space, which and related documents. So here are those core peer-reviewed articles, and then the rest of the stuff is related materials. So back to the update. We are collecting data right now, and we have a contract with Yale University to collect annotations on a microscope system. So if you're near to Yale or New Haven, Connecticut, please contact Tim Blenman, who can organize your participation. And this is a compensation type annotation service, if you will. So that's just a jumpstart data collection on the microscope. Digital is a little bit easier and you can do it from anywhere. And I'm looking for volunteers, as we'll see down here. Also with Kim Blenman is we did win an award for funding our work. So all related to data collection tools and statistical methods. So right in my wheelhouse, and that's supposed to be a 5-year funding, not big money, but enough to help us get some stuff done. Like I alluded to, and maybe I'm doing it chronologically, but we did launch our study in June. It's kind of a soft launch as we got beta testers to go through some of the initial batches, but we had to make sure all the data and everything was working out without any glitches. We have 5 batches of 8 slides each, so that's 40 slides and 400 ROIs because there's 10 ROIs per image. I really would ask for help in sharing this information and posting it as we're recruiting pathologists. There's a wiki page with information and instructions, and a 1-page fancy flyer that we developed to give everything. And if you printed it out, you can post it on your bulletin board. As part of this, we also launched interactive training modules. And one of these will be required. There's a feedback test, which you do your annotations and you get immediate feedback from a group of experts and you can see your score, see the image, and then see the feedback. And there's a proficiency test, and you'll get a test performance report with these 2 tests, and you must pass the proficiency test to be in the study, because I got too many times the questions are, what are the qualifications of your pathologists that are providing the reference standard? And now I can say, well, they have to pass this proficiency test and also a CME course that I announced to this group earlier. And you can see examples of the test reports just to get a feel for how people are graded and how ultimately we'll be building the assessment of a model, algorithm model in a similar fashion and as what we do in these test reports, so you can get a little feel for that. The green part here is about the CME course that I just mentioned. It is also a requirement to be in the pivotal study, because I want to be able to say our reference standard pathologists were adequately trained. It's hosted by the FDA. I've announced it before. Here's that information repeated. We've been sourcing slides for about a year now. It's really hard to find triple-negative breast cancer slides. If you know any of that, and the hardest part is the chart reviews, but we're really building our set of slides. We did participate in a conference and talked about some of our preliminary results with our pilot study. So I can get stuff there. We're kind of in the middle of moving stuff over, so I don't have the slides immediately ready in a link here. In order to facilitate some of the things you already saw with Kim Blenman mentioned, we have a research collaboration executed. So that's helping not just our collaboration, but slide sourcing, because there has to be agreement when we're starting to share slides. And then lastly, we were at the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium, kind of advertising the training materials that we were creating at that time. So, Joe, thanks a lot for this opportunity. If there is time, I'd take a question or maybe wait to the end of our meeting today.
Perfect. Thank you, Brandon. It's great. And the new website looks fantastic.
Thank you. Happy, do I need to relinquish? No,
I think I can grab it back. Okay. We move on, legislative and some federal updates. So one thing is related to this memorandum originally issued in May 11th, 2023, which I think I didn't hear anyone complain about it. In other words, I think it was uniformly accepted in the field that it's good to continue some of the enforcement discretions during the pandemic, which is, that this sentence here, that certain things will not be continued. For example, the enforcement discretionary review of physical slides from remote locations. But one thing that happened recently, and we put a full PowerPoint together that's already on the website. We will not have time to go through this, But this is an outline in the Federal Register that recognizes some of the work that many of us, the various societies, CAP, the Association for Pathology Informatics, ASCP, have done. And the Federal Register now lists the pathology community has expressed their desire to make this enforcement discretion a permanent provision after the end of the public health emergency. And what follows is about 2 pages of Federal Register text that also specifically outlines 3 groups of elements, so to say, where the government is asking for specific input. And if you have the time to look at this PowerPoint presentation that we put together, the last 3 pages in the appendix list those questions, and that is open for commenting, I think, until September 11th. So these specific questions we probably address in a separate meeting. So in case anyone's interested, please shoot Ulla a brief text now, and we can send you an invite to that meeting regarding a potential comment coming from PICC. But this is, I presume, a Federal Register entry that many of the societies will comment on separately. So I know CAP is working on it, AIP, and etc. Moving on, there's a very interesting set of press releases that happened at the end of July and beginning of August, which comes from the Office of the Inspector General, related to a release of a toolkit for adverse event reporting. And it is a set of documents that specify exactly how to identify and how to report these. So if you are involved in QA/QC or adverse event reporting, this is definitely an interesting approach, also explaining the review methodology. Jumping over the pond quickly to the EU IVDR aspect, there are 2 documents and 1 additional standard that came out. So quickly, the Artificial Intelligence Application Risks and Ethical and Social Impacts document is a study that came from the Panel for the Future of Science and Technology. And they shared, I forgot how many pages, it's pretty long, and specifies, I thought, especially the risks when implementing it in clinical or in clinical near use cases. And then the other part, which is still open, which is a reflection paper from 2 of the committees related to the EMA. And that is on AI for the medicinal product life cycle. So this includes production, good manufacturing, good laboratory practices. And as you can see, the draft was from last month, and then the official so-called consultation period is currently ongoing. So if you have time and want to dive into what that looks like, that might be of interest for those acting in that market. Of course, a lot of definitions and discrepancies between the US and EU sector, but definitely of interest also for scientific work. There's a link that was shared with us related to a list of EU MDR, IVDR harmonized standards and common specifications. That is, if I just quickly, if you allow me to upload this quickly here, it is listing literally what the standard is and what the title of the standard is. So as a resource, extremely useful. Just a quick shout out. Let me just see, because I can see everyone on the screen, but is Noor or someone from MDIC available? I think she's probably connecting right now.
Yeah, it looks like Nora's still not on. I believe she's having some technical difficulties, so we might have to loop back to her.
Noor, is that working?
Hi, I
Or-
just got back on. I'm so sorry. I'm having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to keep my camera off.
Sure.
But I can give the MDIC updates very quickly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Noor.
Yeah, of course.
ahead.
So, hi everyone. I hope everyone's having a wonderful week. I wanted to give a few MDIC updates. We're having an MXR event in Bethesda, Maryland, happening October 24th and 25th. We are expecting to have a lot of key stakeholders from the industry, along with FDA speakers and representatives from CDRH. So we're very excited for this event. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or Jitesh, and we can always loop back in and answer any questions for you. And Ula, if you don't mind switching to the next slide to show some speakers. So our key featured speakers will be Lucas Fernandez from Meta Reality Labs and Dr. Michael O'Hara from Microsoft Corporation. And we are very excited to have both of them along with some key FDA speakers. They'll not be sharing those just because we're going through the finalization stages of having them invited. And FDIC is also hosting another event, which is the APF event, and that is going to be happening September 19th and 20th at the iconic Hotel Washington in downtown Washington, D.C. We're very excited to have a lot of key speakers as well at this event, including, Ula, if you don't mind switching the slide. Yes, including Dr. Califf and Dr. James and Ed DeYoung, who is a Pulitzer Prize winner, and Andrea Palm, who's the Deputy Secretary of the DHHS. So this is gonna be an incredible event. And the APF is the annual public forum for MDRC. So it's the highlight of the year for us, and it is a great way for MDRC to connect with outside stakeholders along with different people that are interested in learning more about MDRC and who we are as an organization. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or would like to learn more, and we hope to see a lot of you there. And the last thing is AMCH, which is Advanced Manufacturing Clearinghouse, is still has funding for many people to be able to apply for. So please feel free to read more about the program and what the funding requirements are for any AMCH projects. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you, Noor, and thanks MDIC. You guys been always very active, and I love it. And it looks like the APF will be a great success. Plus, that's a great location. Quick pointer to some of the updates from the professional societies. One quick pointer to a very interesting article in CAP Today about some of the tipping points. And I think many of you who are on the call and many of the CAP leadership were interviewed here. Now the next update is related to a conference that CAP is organizing, I think the day before the CAP meeting. And I think Ted and Mary were willing to provide a few pointers. Can I hand it over to you?
Sure. Ted Carruthers, who is our Director of Cancer Protocols and Data Standards, will be able to talk about this. So Ted, I'll give it to you.
All right, thank you. So as Mary mentioned, I'm director for the team at the college that produces the cancer protocols and our associated products. I've been with the CAP from the early beginnings of our journey to integrate the cancer protocols and synoptic reporting into the current LIS environments that we have today. Over the past several years, we've been really building a solid foundation of users who are now collecting the data associated with the cancer protocols into their LIS systems. However, we've recently been talking about that there's really a recognized need that the full potential of data to support research, public health, population science, and quality improvement hasn't been fully realized. So we wanted to create an opportunity to bring the users that we have of the cancer protocols together to help tell their stories, explore partnerships, and kind of support that next generation of users with their synoptic data. So with that, I'm really excited to announce that this is the first iteration of our program, but we've created an event that Joe had mentioned that's associated or adjacent to the CAP annual meeting that'll be on Friday, October 5th. And it'll help this community come together and share those experiences. The title of the summit is The Future of Cancer Data: Unlocking Insights with Pathology Reporting. Our audience is primarily pathologists, but we're also looking to engage other stakeholders that have an interest in pathology informatics, oncology informatics, cancer registries, LIS administrators, and anyone else that really has any tie to the use of the pathology synoptic data. Our objectives are really to bring together leaders in the field to share their experiences, best practices, novel use of pathology data for research, public health, population science, and quality improvement. We're looking to explore opportunities to really shape the future of pathology data for patient empowerment, for our clinical partners and for pathologists. And so with that, the agenda that we have put together was really designed to kind of start from the perspective of the patient, and then the care team collaborators, followed by drilling down into the new frontiers and technologies for use of that data. So with that, to kick off our summit, we have Paula Kim, who is the founder of the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. She'll be really providing that top level patient perspective from the patient. And then following that, we have Dr. Peter Yu, who's an oncologist and leader at the Hartford Healthcare System. He's also past president of ASCO, and he was very instrumental in our efforts to promote the adoption of synoptic reporting in California before he moved on to Hartford Healthcare. From there, we have other sessions related to public health, discussions on biomarker reporting. We have examples on the implementation of the cancer protocols and synoptic reporting in British Columbia, as they've made significant advancements in the use of the cancer protocols at a national level in Canada. And there's a few more sessions from other pathologists that are really starting to get to use the data within their systems. As we have on the screen here, there's information on the CAP website. The registration is fairly minimal from a cost perspective. It's only a $50 fee, and that's primarily just so we don't have cancellations. So if others are interested, please reach out to myself, to Mary, or others from the CAP that are on the call today, and we'd be happy to provide more information. And I think someone posted the link in the chat as well.
Yes. Fantastic. I think it's a very timely, it's a great idea and very timely because, you know, pathology is really transforming more and more into a data science field. And yeah.
And just one quick other point too, is that this is our first iteration. Our full intent is really to start to build an engagement with those users that are willing to participate and share their stories. So, you know, looking beyond this year, we're, you know, obviously starting to look at ways in which we can integrate that into other CAP annual meetings and continue to really kind of tell those stories and let people know how that data is being used.
Perfect. Yeah. And I think one question is, of course, if someone from PICC could be there as a representative. So I think if someone is going to the CAP meeting, please shoot us a note, and then we can probably have that person or multiple report back, because it would be great to also get a summary, probably at our October meeting, then how that seminar was, because I think that would be extremely helpful. And, you know, since I know that these satellite symposia, especially when they're new, are very productive, I think it might be even a chance to maybe report back in like a special webinar to allow a broader membership of PICC to learn a bit more about it. Plus, you can probably use that for additional input, etc. But
absolutely, we'd love to take you up on that opportunity.
oh yeah, and I see the first messages of folks who will be there already trickle in. Perfect, that's amazing. We definitely synergize. I love it. And Ted, thank you for joining us and presenting this. Very much appreciated.
Anytime.
We move forward. A quick shout out to, you know, one of our other societies, DPA. They have provided a schedule of events for the main so-called Igniting Transformation is the subtitle of Path Visions this year, Orlando, Florida. And I know there are several webinars coming up, including this one, Building Bridges Between Bites and Biopsies, you know, cool title. And I think that's September 12th, and you see the speakers here. And I know Esther Abels, I don't know if she's on. I can't see this, but Ulla, maybe you can ping her if she's here, Esther.
Not seen her.
Okay, yeah, I think she texted me earlier that she might not be able to make it, but there is an exciting new task force, so but it's probably going to be September. We move forward to a few things related to genomics and some of the elements reaching us here. There's a very interesting initiative called the Center for Genomic Interpretation. The link will probably come into the chat momentarily. You see some of the great players and usual suspects from the government. You see 3 big branches here represented. And why I thought I wanted to share this is that it's a great repository of publications related to laboratory developed tests and some of the IVD market related to, you know, how is there sufficient or insufficient regulation, etc. But it is very much tied to high complexity testing in the genomic space. The second part, which is an equally interesting resource when it comes to elements, is from Awesome Numbers, which is a very cool name. And the group is providing a lot of analytical phase assessments related to laboratory testing in general. And these are resources just in case you have a need for this for local advocacy or larger scale, or just want to know what laboratory errors look like when they're compiled collectively. And then 2 more resources. One is the so-called unknown genome or unknown. You know, everything can be made to an ohm now, but this is a very interesting gene ontology set for exploration of unknown genes and their function, which is a systematic screening. This was recently published in PLOS Biology, but this is the website, which is organized and I think maintained by Tim Stevens. And you can do cluster as well as, you know, ranked searches. It's a very cool element if you're into genomics and you come across a gene without functional evidence. Something related to mostly genomics now, but possibly soon also digital path coding. So we're switching to a little bit more of resources, is that for many molecular and genetic tests, Z codes are happening right now, and you have to know and understand what Z codes are and how to implement those. And Kyle Fetter from Zyfin wrote this beautiful open article that unfortunately reached us a bit late. And another familiar name here is Dr. Gabe Bian-Wilner from MolDX. And both of them discussed the topic and how to actually operationalize Z code. So that's more or less related to genomics for now, but I think similar strategies will likely apply to digital pathology codes as they move from code 3 to code 1. A quick pointer to diversity, inclusion, and equity. In this case, it was 2 papers that I quickly want to put pointers out. One is an editorial type or a perspective, they call it in the New England Journal, about how ChatGPT is changing medical education. For example, if you need to write an essay or something, you know, what does that look like? And many of the, let's call it attractions around it and what they can be used for is discussed. And it's pretty clear that many medical schools have moved to sort of agreement type deals where people agree that they will not use ChatGPT to create certain elements, which is a perfectly fair approach. And related to that is this magnificent paper by Simeon Schudy and colleagues, which actually explored in a psychologic way whether such commitment requests have or do not have effect on the truth-telling of whether people use this or not. It's a phenomenal online versus offline experiment, and in case you're interested in that, I thought a pointer to that might be helpful. Or if you're in education and try to avoid or encourage people to use ChatGPT, might be an interesting approach. Switching over to patient advocacy, and I think Brittany from our friends at Friends is here. Brittany, can I hand it over to you for a second?
Sure, absolutely. Always happy to be a friend. Thank you. So we are really excited. In less than a month now, we have our virtual meeting that'll be on September 26th for focusing on computational digital pathology as it pertains to oncology drug development. This has really been a culmination over the last 6 months or so. We've been working with a multi-stakeholder working group, including many on the call and represented through PICC, to really establish a white paper that focuses on both the opportunities for using computational digital pathology tools in oncology, but also some of the challenges, and laying out some proposals to help facilitate robust development and validation of these tools. And so we will be releasing the white paper prior to this meeting to our registrants, and it'll be on our website. And we're really looking forward to the discussion. We'll have a panel discussion that will be open for audience Q&A. And so we really hope to have a great turnout, a really fruitful discussion to help push this forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And also big shout out to leading this initiative and hopefully what will come of it. But it's so far every single initiative from Friends has been extremely successful in this in this realm. So, you know, I'm thinking about all the harmonization efforts on TMB, homologous recombination deficiency, CT monitor, all the projects are all very well thought out. And I think this white paper will be very well received, not only by drug developers, but also by the field. So thank you so much for spearheading this, Brittany, and I think Mark, the two galleon figures of that project, and thank you. So big shout out to Friends, and also I think that's great timing. Okay, resources. As always, first a big shout out to everyone who sends papers, etc. So I will try to acknowledge some of the highlights. Ulla has already pasted a lot of these on the website, and I want to go through this fairly quickly so we have some time for discussion and chats. But first of all, Margareta Colangelo, she has a big LinkedIn following and writes beautiful articles. And one of these is this month about pharma research and how ChatGPT can reduce months to seconds. It's a beautifully written article. The second part is, as many of you know and probably suffer with or under prior authorization, there is a prior authorization reform underway for drugs as well as devices, or I should call it diagnostic tests. And Dr. Kylan Song wrote a piece on this. Next two papers both appeared in the archives. One is Don't Fear the Artificial Intelligence, which is systematic review on prostate AI tools. And then the second one, which is a little more inflammatory, and I put that in parentheses. That's not my assessment, but I received, I think, this paper here, at least from 6 of you or colleagues that might not be on the call, which is that IHC should be regulated as an essay, which is a position paper, I think, written as a comment. So if you haven't seen it, please take a look. Without going into details, the authors make some reasonable arguments, and whether or how that can be accomplished remains to be determined. There's, in the Journal of Pharmaceutical Policy and Practice, is a very interesting paper that is effectively trying to justify or provide an outline of what the investment and return of investment for companion diagnostics is, especially in the realm of precision oncology. And aside from the regulatory definition of companion diagnostics, which I know you all know, is a very interesting deducted definition where, if you read this here, that those diagnostic tests that were developed with the intention of deploying a companion diagnostics were considered precision oncology medicines. So now we're not only defining a test and the drug as a combination and a couple, but an entire field of precision oncology through the application of that. There's a very interesting approach to delineate some of the investment and or justifications that they derive. And this group is extremely accomplished. And in their conclusion, they basically define or deduct from their analysis that there's a crucial inflection point that would require a more flexible companion diagnostic development framework, which slightly different wording was also one of the white papers that Friends was involved in, that basically companion diagnostics and real world evidence should be used for some of the regulatory decision making. So if you're in this field of companion diagnostics or precision oncology, please take a look. Two interesting books, I would call it. They're of course PDFs, but one is a fairly controversial title, is whether the evidence-based medicine paradigm should be challenged. And it is going in detail through the strengths and weaknesses of this paradigm. And as we just discussed, companion diagnostics and personalized medicine is by definition taking individual data into account rather than, you know, a total cohort. So this book is entirely dedicated to this topic. It's phenomenal work. And then this resource here, which is experimental evidence from radiology in trying to align AI and human decision making, which is, it just came out, and it's a fairly sophisticated piece. I think it's freely available, so please take a look. Two resources that are also very well thought out is one is whether synthetic health data is personal data. That sounds at first glance a little bit weird to say that even, but if you read through the PhD Foundation derived resource, you will probably understand why they raised this question. And then there's a phenomenal resource by DeciBio, who do phenomenal tech and or field assessments. For example, here in the precision oncology research and development space regarding, for example, certain technologies and where they relate the investment with the return of investment. Time for a few papers. You may have seen this before. Nicholson Price and a few colleagues wrote an enabling collaborative governance framework for medical AI. There's a retrospective cohort design for an overview of direct-to-consumer genetic testing. And this is a screening paper where they assessed whether direct-to-customer testing is actually meaningful. It was a series of AI papers. We had to do some sort of selection. One is how to harness the power of Twitter using visual language foundation models. A second one is machine learning to actually understand the origin of a tumor for unknown primary. Interestingly, which I think is the cutting edge part, also how to predict response to treatment at the same time. A quick pointer to review, which is fairly tricky to talk about the theories of origins of cancer, and having a Nature Reviews on Cancer paper on that topic says probably something. It is quite interesting, and you know, if you haven't seen it, please take a look. One element somewhat related to our payers workforce is that CMS Innovation Center, which is a subset in CMS, has released a new care model, in this case related to dementia, but it seems to be a common theme that certain diseases or disease groups, you know, and have heard about the sepsis collaborative community, where people try to tackle one care pathway from multiple angles. And so please take a look if you've seen this. That's probably predicting what will happen with many other diseases. There were two papers related to some of the reimbursement and coverage decisions related to if something is FDA approved or not versus Medicare Part D utilization management. A great paper from the translational research realm that illustrates how you get from identification of a research problem all the way to commercialization with knowledge translation and all the different steps. So this is, in a way, pre-competitive, but at the same time, you know, how to actually do some of the validations that we would like and cherish all the time. I thought it was a very interesting, quick overview, especially good for teaching, I think. In the field of ovarian cancer, you know, we have an ovarian cancer competition that was at some point featured in PyCC. And here's 2 pointers, one to a paper that was shared with us from one of the PyCC members, and from NIH, OCCPR, which is the Office of Cancer Clinical Proteomics research about a novel 64 protein signature, and that was published in Cell recently. I think Brandon mentioned this already with the HTT project and TILS. There were actually, I think there's a total of 4 or 5 papers in the Journal of Pathology, but these were in part led by some of the TILS gurus. You see the author list is quite impressive, and both were, one on pitfalls, the other one on spatial analysis related to TILS. And then keep in mind, I only selected the top 10% or so of papers that we got, so the laundry list is much, much longer. But language model for single-cell RNA-seq analysis, someone questioning whether the language models are really working as a foundation model for electronic health records, skin cancer reinforcement learning, exome sequencing with identification of coding variants in breast. You may have seen the paper that assembled 43 human Y chromosomes, which is, you know, there's always seem to be new ways of identifying this, but they took geographic heterogeneity into account. It's from Charles Lee's group. So another big black box in the genome that was deciphered. And then this amazing paper, which is a morphological atlas, basically, of single-cell genomics of the adult human breast and what that looks like, including network diagrams, and the terminal ductal lobular unit was completely dissected. It's amazing. Another great review on site-specific immune barriers to metastasis. And I will skip over a few because I gave myself the hard stop of leaving 10 minutes for that. But the papers are just so good. You guys are doing too good of a job. 21st century, if you write that in the title and you review all FDA approval of cancer therapies, you made it, I think. But if you can see this here is 22 years of FDA approval reviews. So if you want to get some trends out, that's it. This is radiomics and pathology merger, new devices on how to do complete resections when you have a radio tracer, in this case, fluorescently marked imaging for intraoperative margin assessment. So if you're in the head and neck space, it's just amazing. There's a blueprint for improving America's healthcare system. This came from the Payers Group. And I think I leave the last 6 papers for you to review. It's all in the online part. Our next steering committee meeting is September 27th, again, 3 o'clock and here. And I really thought it would be good to open this up for questions, comments, suggestions, etc. So let's do that. Yeah, Keith, I agree. Like I probably insulted 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 people that I couldn't feature some of the papers, but it's really incredible. I think it's the summer or something. I don't know, but there's the field is booming. The AI is just outstanding work. So.
Are there any more, I guess, device or algorithm approvals that might be interesting to go through the summary statements and see if there's lessons learned about where the sort of approval standards are for these things?
I'm not aware of any, but there are a few we could reach out to others. Do you have anything in mind, or?
I don't off the top of my head, but I've been an ostrich lately. My head buried in the sand on some projects, so that's why your list is yeah, it's incredible. It's really helpful. Thank you.
So I'll go ahead, at break, as I often like to do, and ask what our plans are for a PICC project based on the end of the face-to-face meeting we had this summer. So you wanna break some of that ice, or do you want me to break some of that ice?
I mean, if you want to start, I can chime in, but yeah, go ahead.
So, you know, for me, just like my project, I believe it's always about the data in digital pathology, especially in computational pathology. And the way we ended up the meeting, if you hadn't had a chance to see the summary on the ICC website, is about trying to build a pipeline for a few, you know, small scope use cases to try and build up that pipeline that could support testing some model, and to try and have this pipeline involve, you know, an academic hospital, or and maybe some other a little bit more diverse rural type of health providers, and to try and see if we couldn't standardize enough of that reporting, you know, according to the checklists and whatnot that correspond to the use case, and leverage some of the work that we also heard about at that conference, like that MedPerf by Alex Karagiris, to try and have a place where that data could be then used by model developers to get some performance reports, test performance reports. And you know, I think that's something that is kind of at least adjacent to the Friends proposals that they will talk about, I assume and hope, at the meeting at the end of September. And also to try and answer questions about generalizability of models across pre-analytical factors, slide preparation is what I mean, and scanning characteristics and scanner models, so that we can maybe find pathways or methods to reduce the burden of what the FDA would ask for. So when are we going to take some steps? I mean, in my mind, and I know I have maybe something to write down, to at least put forward some type sort of diagram of what that could look like. And I don't know if this group that are on the call today knows that story that I just told, and whether they also would raise their hand as that's a good way to try and harness this group, and who would raise their hand to also participate. And so there's definitely a few funding ideas and organizations in mind. Joe and I had a conversation with the Foundation for NIH, so not a small player in the funding world. And they were, you know, they answered my email like the next day. They took a meeting with Joe and I, and were very proactive, and I think setting the table for us to be invited, for us to show up at their steering committee meeting in November. And I think if we have some sort of skeleton proposal, maybe with the groups kind of listed, as well as goals and objectives, and kind of a diagram of how it all comes together, would be something that they would welcome and give feedback on and give us a quick turnaround on whether that's something they want to sign a check for.
Bren, can I make a suggestion? Because I think this is probably well aligned with possibly some of the goals of some of our societies, as well as I think of CAP, I think of probably Friends, but maybe not necessarily every single one on the steering committee call. So maybe we could propose a brief statement, or we could possibly put that together and then have a separate meeting where those interested in actually contributing, and the outline is on the annual meeting web page that Ulla has just pasted in the chat, so that we have a little more time, because I think it's fairly restricted now. I'm just thinking, but if someone has a comment, I'm just trying to make sure that we have adequate space for people to make suggestions. But I definitely encourage the idea of creating a data set like that.
Definitely thought it was appropriate to make sure everyone here knew some of that discussion, and I think having a satellite meeting, maybe to take some of those baby steps this month before our next steering committee meeting, under the project heading that I think we created with the meeting, the summer meeting we had.
So maybe we can just make that an announcement on the website, right? And schedule something for the next couple of weeks, so we have an update for the next steering committee meeting about what an outline like that would look like. But we definitely need people who want to contribute data. I think that was pretty clear, because I think the real world evidence part was, I think, resonating with most people, at least in the in-person meeting. Okay. It's great seeing everyone. I think we're at the top of the hour. Want to be mindful of your time. If you have questions or anything, please reach out, and keep doing all the good work that you're doing, and please share it with us.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone.